I've been training people since 2015. And you might be thinking, so what? What's that got to do with you? How does that benefit you? Well, I've got 3 kids and I'm 44. So all I do now is train dads. That's it. And therefore I can tell you with 100% conviction, you will never lose belly fat if you do not overcome this first psychological stage. We'll get into that. We'll get into the 8 tricks you can apply today to make that happen. But before we do, we've got to address 3 myths, because these are the most common that I hear from dads. The first is being older makes it harder to lose weight. The second is being a dad makes it harder to lose weight. And the third is being overweight is genetic. Once you clear up these myths, then you're ready to apply these psychological tricks. But I'm not proud to say this. When I was in my 30s, I used to train fellas in their 40s, 50s, 60s on the gym floor. And I'd say to them, you need to be more disciplined. You need to be preparing chicken and broccoli for your lunch every day. You do this fat burning workout. And I cringe about that now because I know better. I know it's all in the head. It's not simple. Excuse me. It is simple, but it's not easy. So I'm going to address these 2 half-naked gentlemen in a moment. But before I do, good news. I got a free training. How to lose 15 pounds in 8 weeks without fad diets. It's at the end of this video. If you click on it, you'll get to it, or I'll put it in a link in the description below. And hundreds of people have done this. Like Mark here, a 44-year-old legend, 2 teenage kids, travels a lot of work. He was with me started off being 8 weeks, and then in total it was 9 months, and he lost 20 kilo, which is 44 pounds. My body fat, 8.5% he lost, and BMI was down 5.5. So let's get into it. Myth number 1. My metabolism slows down as I age. It's broken. It's not true. Ponsa did this study of 6,600 people. From the ages of 20 to 60, they noticed that the metabolism was flat, didn't change. And only after 60 did it go down 0.7%. Insulin is the main driver of fat storage because we eat carbohydrates, most of us, too much of them. Spikes our blood sugar levels. And then our body stores that as fat, insulin. Right? It's a hormone. And we become insulin resistant. And just like insulin, testosterone and cortisol have an inverse relationship. So you want high testosterone, but when you've got high cortisol, it hammers that down. Cortisol is needed in the short term. When you have a cup of coffee, that spikes your cortisol. When you work out, that spikes your cortisol. But when you're constantly stressed, you're going to bed too late, waking up too early, your cortisol is constantly high, and that keeps that belly fat where it is, that stubborn fat. But the biggest lever you can pull is not cardio. It's not keto, intermittent fasting. It is building muscle. You will not become a bodybuilder unless you take steroids. I've been trying to be a bodybuilder for 10 years now. Look at me. I'm lean. I'm strong. I guess you could say athletic looking on a good day. And that's just from lifting weights. The leanness then comes from the food. Because when you have more muscle mass and less fat, you require more energy. So picture 2 cars at traffic lights. One is a big SUV and one is a tiny Mini. They're not moving, but the engines are on. Which one do you think uses more fuel? The SUV, because it's bigger. The same applies to your muscle. So just having more muscle, you'll have a faster resting metabolic rate. Second myth, being a dad makes it harder. Okay, I confess. When your missus has a kid, your kid, ideally, your testosterone drops a little bit. And that's good because you need to have caring, nurturing side. You don't want to be aggressive with the baby. But that's only in the short term, right? It's just a little nudge downwards. It very quickly comes back with lifestyle, which we'll get into in a second. The major advantage of being a dad versus being a single fella who's childless is that you have structure. You know what it's like with kids. It can be quite boring. Every day feels like it's the same, especially when they're really young. But this is good for you because you've got that structure. Right? And you are a parent. You're saying, no, don't eat the ice cream. Yes, brush your teeth. Do the same with yourself. You're already in that mode. No, don't eat this. Yes, go to the gym. And maturity is going to beat motivation every single day of the week because you now have more purpose. It's not just vanity, just for the six pack. So structurally, it's easier, but psychologically, it's much easier when you're a dad. And finally, genetics. Genetics load the gun. Your environment pulls the trigger. Now, your missus probably runs your house. Mine does. Meal times, bedtimes, all the routines. Right? She buys all the grub. So you need to talk to her because she's a massive factor in your environment. Say to her, look, I'm doing this thing, not for the six pack, not for vanity, to be a stronger, healthier, more present dad and eventually granddad and a better partner to you. All right, so let's maybe buy these foods instead of those foods. And we'll go into that in a moment. But let's get back to these two half-naked gentlemen. Seth Rogen and Ryan Gosling, both in the mid-40s. Both actors, both millionaires, but different mindsets of fat loss, and I'll go into that in one moment. Quick disclaimer though, and this is a bit heartbreaking. Yesterday I'm chatting to a client, a dad, trying to lose weight, and he said, people assume you're lazy when you're overweight. He goes to the gym. He likes the gym. His struggle is the food. Seth Rogen is not lazy. Seth Rogen started writing Superbad at 13. One of the greatest comedies ever. My missus doesn't like it. She doesn't like vulgarity. But I do. 13-year-old boy in me loves it. But he wrote that. He's won 5 Emmys. Incredibly successful. He just doesn't apply the same techniques to his body. And I'll tell you why. His mindset. Now, Ryan Gosling, he has described himself as a performer. His body is his tool. He has said in an interview in 2011, he doesn't like going to the gym, but he likes exercise. He likes ballet. He likes gymnastics. Right? So he does it because he likes it. He's not forcing himself to do it. Whereas Seth Rogen, he talks about the fact that he does it because it's his identity. Right, let me show you. Stay fat, people. That's my motto. It's not a picnic. So he has said openly that he stays fat because it's part of his identity. Because he actually got into shape for the Green Hornet back in 2009. Right, he lost 30 pounds. And Ryan Gosling put on 60 pounds in 2007 for The Lovely Bones. So that also dispels another myth that people have where they say, well, these fit people have always been fit. Right? It's not true. And also with age, people tend to think, oh, yeah, Ryan Gosling, he's younger, so it's easy for him. He's not. Seth Rogen is actually older, but that's by the by. The big difference here is the mentality. Now, Seth Rogen has talked about this, and I'll quote him, because everyone thinks like, oh, yeah, he probably has a few kids, and Ryan Gosling is this young stud who's probably got all the birds. No, listen, Ryan Gosling's got 2 daughters. Seth Rogen is childless. And he actually said, we're laying in bed on Saturday morning smoking weed, watching movies naked. If we had kids, we could not be fucking doing this. Well, he said that on Howard Stern back in 2021. And this caused loads of controversy, but it's up to him if he doesn't have kids. But the point is what I'm saying about that responsibility. You are now a father. Big deal. Do you know how many single incels there are? They can't get a bird, let alone procreate with one. A woman has put her trust in you to have kids. So you must have loads of good traits. And that should fill you with confidence that you should start looking after yourself, because other people are, like your missus. So he said it himself, right? It's not a picnic. And you're not supposed to be knackered as a man, as a dad, right? Because you're not applying the principles that I'm going to go through with you now. Right, number one. The problem. You're disciplined everywhere except the mirror. Just like Seth. So you're probably excelling in work. Now, chances are, if you're able to keep a woman, feed children, you're making money. And if you're making money, someone's paying you because you're very competent at something and you can do it very, very well. You have a household. You're able to keep a roof over kids and your lady's head, paying that mortgage. And your kids, I mean, you're able to produce them, right? And you look after them. So now, what are you doing for yourself? What are you the last priority on the list? And here's how you get around that. Change your thinking. Instead of, because your body doesn't change until you change how you think about food. Think first and eating will follow. Stop asking yourself, what plan shall I follow? And instead ask, what 2 daily habits could I change overnight that keep me overweight? For example, right, I'm going to do 10,000 steps every day, no matter what. I'm going to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of my body weight every day, no matter what. And I challenge you, right, not to do intermittent fasting, not to do keto, Atkins. Right? I challenge you not to do that for 4, 5, 6 weeks, right? Because I know you want to do that, and most people do. And instead, I challenge you to change those 2 things and do it for 6 months. It's boring. It's not exciting. There's no novelty there. But the consistency is the key. Add in things instead of taking them away. Because once you want to lose weight, you think, okay, I need to deprive myself. I need to take things away. I can't eat that. I shouldn't do that. But instead, add things in. Right? We snack in the evenings because we're nutrient deficient. Right? We haven't eaten enough in the first half of the day and we're bored. So I guarantee you, if you're hitting your protein target the first half of your day, you won't want to snack in the evening because you'll be satiated. I guarantee you, if you're doing 10,000 steps a day, you won't have time to eat, to be snacking, because you're looking for that energy. Right? That's what you want when you snack as well. I'm bored, I need a bit of a buzz. You get out and walk, that's going to give you energy. Number 2 of 8. The damage is invisible when you're a dad. So if someone says to you, eat less sugar, that just bounces off your brain. Obviously, we know not to do that. To eat less sugar. And you've heard that 1,000 times. But the real damage comes in the sneaky eats, the sneaky drinks. Right? This is the Lucozade, the can of Coke, the syrup coffee. And coffees nowadays are basically milkshakes with caffeine in them. Or eating the kids' leftovers in the car, the chicken goujons. Because you only count what you've ordered, that food. You don't count what the leftovers are. So the simple fix is make it visible to land in your gut. You need to feel it. When you hear grams of sugar, it means nothing. What's a gram of sugar? I'll tell you. So a 12-ounce can of Coke has 40 grams of sugar. That's 10 teaspoons, right? That's 8 sugar sachets that you get in a restaurant. Imagine that. That little 12-ounce can of Coke has 8 of those sachets of sugar. Even Rice Krispies, I was chatting to a fella in a second, but he would eat a big bowl of Rice Krispies for his breakfast. Right? I mean, 100 grams of Rice Krispies is 12 grams of sugar. So that's like 3-4 of those sugar sachets. And what I say to my clients is, look, you've got 2 choices. You can keep eating those foods, but every time you do, every Jaffa cake you eat, every Rice Krispie you eat, you got to send me a photograph. And that stops that secret eating. And if they're not willing to do that, which most aren't, the second option, which is the one I recommend, is half it. Can you eat half? So instead of having 2 Jaffa cakes, can you have 1? And that still gives you the pleasure, but half the damage. And I'll go through that in more detail shortly. But once you start picturing how much sugar is in these foods, visually, it'll make you feel disgusted. And that's a powerful emotion. Number 3, the problem, the ban binge cycle. The cycle is always the same, right? I'm going to ban everything. I'm going to white knuckle for 2 weeks. Crack down, demolish the kitchen, right? And then you hate yourself. And then you swear you'll never do it again. And then you repeat that action. And this blowout is a guarantee. The most dangerous words you will ever utter to yourself is, I've ruined it now, so I might as well go all in, especially on the weekend. Because every round of this teaches you that you're not in control. Right? You can't lose the weight. So this is the solution. And this is what I mean by halving the portions. Forget about willpower. There's 3 things we can do and 3 levers we can pull when it comes to still getting our pleasure from our foods that we like, but making it less damaging. Because we want pleasure, and that's fair enough. 3 things you can do is smaller amount, better version, less often. So let's take Friday night pizza, for example. That can stay. But if we do a better version, that would be 2 slices and a side of wings instead of a whole large pizza to yourself. If we do a smaller amount, that is thin crust instead of a stuffed crust. And if we do less often, that might be, okay, Friday onlys. Every Friday we do that only, but we don't do it anytime we have a bad day or we're feeling too tired to cook. Right? And you can do curry. We love curry in our house. Me and our missus, that's our treat. You know, when you've got 3 little kids, you don't have much pleasure. So eating is a pleasure, a bit of a treat for yourselves. But again, same template applied. A better version. Can I have a tandoori instead of a creamy korma? A smaller amount. Can I have just the curry and just the rice instead of curry, rice, naan, and chips? Right, and less often. Maybe we do it every other week instead of every weekend, and then it comes twice a week. And so it's half the damage, same ritual. Yeah, ain't got the guilt, but you've got that hit of pleasure, just less damaging. Number 4, halfway there. You only notice the binge when it's too late, when the food is going into your mouth. Every blowout runs the same 5-link chain. Number 1 is the stray thought. That's the first link of the chain, where you think, all right, it's Thursday night. This is when our local curry house does their special. And you know what? I'm feeling a bit too tired to cook. The stray thought. The second link in the chain is the plan. right, I'm going to work through lunch and then I'll have a feast tonight with the wife. The third link of that chain is the eating, the pleasure. Right, we've got the poppadoms, we've got the naan, we've got the pilau rice, the creamy korma, chips on the side just in case. And then you start eating it and you're like, fucking hell, this is heaven. The dopamine is powerful. You know that feeling? It's like, it feels like a warm hug. That's a curry. And then as you're eating it, you start thinking, well, I can always eat some of these for leftovers tomorrow. You know, I used to do that with Chinese. Order a Chinese and then have some leftovers for breakfast in the microwave, which is kind of disgusting, really. But there you go. And then what ends up happening is you actually finish the whole thing. Because you think like, oh, well, I got some chips left, but I can't throw them in the bin. There's kids starving in Africa. So you eat your curry, your rice, and your chips, and your naan bread, and your poppadoms. And then you got that shame. You're like, fucking hell, I've eaten all of that. Shit, I can't move now. I shouldn't have eaten that. That's the guilt that comes in. And then the last link of the chain, the fifth one is the empty promise. All right, tomorrow. That's it now. Tomorrow, I'm going gym. Starting tomorrow. And then you realize, oh, tomorrow's Friday. No, I can't start on a Friday. Monday. Definitely starting on Monday. And when I do, I'm going to eat granola for breakfast. I'm going to have a salad. I'm going to have, cook my own dinner. And then weekend goes by and you don't do your grocery shopping. Or maybe even worse, you're like, oh no, do you know what? I'm going to cut carbs. Yeah, I'm going to do keto, do intermittent fasting. I've heard it all before. The shame link is the worst one. Because that's where the power goes. Right? It's out of your control then. And see, most people start to notice when it's too late. Right? So here's the solution. Only 2 links, the first 2 can be snapped. Like the thought and the plan. So the thought, you got to name it. You got to park it and give your mind and your body a job to do instead. So because a craving can't survive a busy brain. So let's say the curry thought lands at 9 p.m. on the sofa. That's when our eldest goes to sleep. And then you think, right, what I can do now is I can either make that phone call and they know you so well by now, you just say the usual, or you can get up, fill the dishwasher, pack the lunches for tomorrow. Dare I say, get your gym gear ready for the next morning. And if you're not willing to do that, 20 squats, 20 push-ups. You're not going to do that, are you? But, you know, something active, maybe go for a walk. Or you might be driving past with your out a drive-through and you think, right, I see it there. I see the bright lights. They're calling me. You know, I can sneak off into a drive-through. It doesn't count if I don't eat at home. I eat in the car on the sly for my fix. So instead of doing that, make a phone call. Maybe you've got a buddy that you're going through the same journey with and you call them and say, look, I'm having a craving right now. Maybe you call your wife. Maybe you call the Samaritans. I don't know. Listen to a podcast that motivates you. But you do something that stops you from entertaining that stray thought. Now, if that stray thought takes over, if the thought wins, you got to downgrade. Right, that's the second link, the plan. So let's say you are having a Mackie D's or McDonald's, as you say in America. You're not going to get a quarter pounder with cheese and chips and a milkshake and whatever other stuff they have. You're going to get 3 quarter pounders. You're going to keep one of the buns and put the 3 patties in those 2 buns and eat that. And if you're hungry after that, give it 20 minutes, get another one. Still the pleasure, still the ritual, but without the damage. Number 5. The problem, every plan you've ever tried assumes you're going to be perfect. The first bad week is the last one. Yeah, I didn't stick to it to the T, so what's the point now? The fellas get the fellas that get the best results with me are the ones that get to the drive-through and they realize, oh, I'm feeling a moment of weakness here, right? And they give me a call. Sorry, they leave me a voice note or they send me a text. Right, they're welcome to call me as well. And they will say, right, I'm here. This is what happened. And this is what I did. This is how I dealt with it. And if it all went to shit, they might say in the weekly check-in, this is what went down. I'm letting you know. And this is why things have crept up or not gone the way they were. And we can address that. Because the more data points I have, the more I can help. The ones that don't do well are the ones that do the deed. They don't call me. They don't text me. They don't voice note me. They don't then check in that week because they feel the shame. They go quiet. There's no data and it becomes that spiral once again. Because when you fall off, you're like, well, I've fucked up now, so what's the point? I've just proven to myself that I can't keep to a plan. I mean, in a perfect plan, you're never going to think about the work trip, the holiday, and the stressful night with the kids. And that's why you've got to be flexible. So here's a solution. Think fire drill instead of fire. Plan for the bad week. So let's say you got a work trip. I got a chap who goes away every single week on a work trip. Now, you know you're going to be staying in a hotel. You won't be able to cook. So what can you do? You can find out, do they have a gym? What time does the gym open? What time is breakfast? What's on the menu for breakfast by checking their website or calling ahead? And be honest with yourself, you're not going to do push-ups in the room. If you're away for a week with work in a hotel room workouts, they don't happen in my experience. So find out what gym they have, what equipment is in the gym, and visualize and plan your workouts. Now, maybe the gym opens before breakfast, right? So you can't eat before you work out, and you like to eat before you work out. What can you bring with you? Because I know you go to a nice hotel, they've got those pastries in reception. So maybe you can bring a bunch of bananas. And you think that's mad. I bet you now you're thinking, bring bananas on my work trip. Trust me, you do that, have a banana before your workout, you won't be eating those pastries when you hit the breakfast room. But you got to name the danger zone. Right? The Friday night takeaways, the work trips, the kids' buffet when you get to that party. So decide now what you can do with each one. Plan ahead. And when I go to these kids' parties, they're obsessed with sugar. Right? And my kids are like, Daddy, you can get a party bag and then go home and eat the sweets and then don't go to sleep for all hours. So I find myself in that situation and I find myself, oh, I'll grab one of these, grab one of those. What you do instead is you still go to the party. You still maybe have a sweet or two, but you fill up on protein beforehand because you've planned ahead. And that's what we do, me and my missus. And have a big steak or some chicken before we go to these parties because then we know we're not going to be gouging or gorging on the sweeties. And by the way, expect for these plans to fall off 5-6 times before you hit consistency. You know, you'll do your work trip and maybe you didn't go to the gym, but you made sure that you got your steps in when you woke up in the morning before your breakfast. And then when you got your breakfast, you had your banana but instead of having the pastry. It's not going to be perfect every time. But as you refine and keep going, you build habits and it gets easier and easier. Number 6, Words are powerful. If you start saying, I have to, that becomes where the problems live. I have to. Right? You say, I want to lose weight, and then you say, I have to go to the gym. It's the other way around. I have to lose weight, so I want to go to the gym. I have to exercise. I have to food prep. I have to skip the beers. Right? If your brain hears have to, you file that as a punishment. And then you're going to dodge punishments every time. So what you need to say is, I get to. It sounds cheesy. Right? It sounds a bit Tony Robbins style. I understand that. But I get to train is perspective, because there are fellas, maybe your age, who are in situations where they're in hospital, they've got stroke, got heart disease. I mean, someone I know is paralyzed from the neck down. He's my age. Right? It was an accident. But when I go for a run, I think about that. I'm like, what he would give to run, what he'd give to walk, let alone run. So say to yourself, I get to do this. I mean, every excuse is a skill you haven't learned. Like food prep is a 10-minute YouTube video. Preparing food, packing your lunch, I say, is a 5-minute task. And rest assured, our kids, they get their excuses the same place, they get their motivation. That's from you. Number 7, fear fades and applause dry up. So the problem is you've been running 2 fuels, right? You've been trying this fat loss, weight loss thing powered by 2 things. The first is the fear. Right? You get that diagnosis from the doctor, or even just blood work back, or you're breathless on the stairs. I need to take a sip of tea, sorry. Or you see that photograph and you're like on holiday, fucking hell, look at me. My belly's so big. I've been there. So once you start and you have that fear and you start building a bit of momentum, you're thinking, okay, I'm reaching my goal. Now I've lost my 10 kilo, my 20 pounds, whatever it is. So I'm not scared anymore of what I was, whether it be your blood work, your belly, your breathlessness. And you slowly start to slide back to normality, to what you expect from yourself. If you make it past that stage, you might get to the applause where people start saying, okay, no, you look good. What's your secret? What are you doing? And your missus says to you, oh, you look good. And you start thinking, oh, this is great. I'm liking this. But they won't be complimenting you forever. It'd be weird. It'd be creepy if they did. Right? Those compliments will then stop. That applause will then stop. And then you quietly quit. So you can't rely on fear or applause. The solution is identity. Always has been, always will be. This is the only fuel that will never run out. How you see yourself. It's the most important thing in the world. You're not a fat dad trying to get fit. I mean, once upon a time, whether it was a child or high school or university, you were fit. And this is now you remembering who you are and getting back to the old you, because it's within you. Don't be training for a 6-pack. Training because, or training like because it's a new year. It's January now. I've got to go on this holiday and I don't want to be wearing a t-shirt in the pool. Train because you want to walk your daughter down the aisle. You want to play golf with your son to do 18 holes. You want to bounce on a trampoline with your grandkids, please God, one day. That is your identity. I am the fit dad, the fit granddad. And finally, The final mental shift. Every fix, and the most controversial one, every fix sends the bill later. Fix in what are these called? Bunny ears. The jabs, the surgery. These tools might be useful for the heaviest fellas, although I'm still very doubtful. And there's no shame in that. If it works for you, fine. But the pattern never changes. You stop the fix and the weight will come back, right? Because the habit's never left. A needle will shrink your appetite, but it won't tell you what to do at a barbecue. So be very suspicious of anyone saying that weight isn't your responsibility. Right, so that's the oldest business model in the book. The solution is you own the supply line. You're someone who's happy to be in photographs. Whatever route you choose to take, hard work is non-negotiable. You can do that with the tools or without the tools. But you have to control the supply line. Like a man, if you cooked and carried your own food, the weight would fall off of you. If you just did that. But make food you actually love. Like stick to something that you enjoy. I've stopped giving my fellas a meal plan. Like, you can make this asparagus, pesto, whatever. They're not going to do that. Chances are their missus cooks. I eat the same thing every day, and I really like it. Meat, potatoes, eggs. Easy to cook, very tasty, incredibly nutritious. I like it. It's simple. But it is a little bit boring. And that's the thing. I accept that every meal doesn't have to be really pleasurable. But small changes compound over time. Right? If you just ate the same meal every day and you resistance train 3 times a week, the weight would fall off you. Now, if you don't like going to the gym, like Ryan Gosling, do something you enjoy. Play paddle, play golf, walk. But it has to be something that's sustainable. And you can't make compromise. You need to make some sacrifices. So this is why you apply halving things, downgrading things. If you drink pints or wine, can you drink half the amount per week? Can your portions downgrade by a third of what you eat? And if you can pack your nightly lunches every day, you'd be a different fellow in a year's time. Because your kids are young once. You know this, I know this. And there's only so many times they'll want to play catch with you, or kick a football, or ask you to go on the trampoline. And right now, you probably don't feel like you have the energy to do that, or to say yes to them. But then one day they'll stop asking. And it's not that you can't get back the games of catch that you missed, right? But you can make sure there aren't any more of them. Oh yeah. Click here for the free training. How to lose 15 pounds in 8 weeks without fad diets as a dad.